Hello everyone and welcome back to another video on the channel. Today we have a massive surprise on my end because we are going to be talking about the brand new Top Gun Tom Cruise adventure called Top Gun Maverick, of course. And this is a movie that people have been waiting for decades for this movie's release, and especially the past few years that have been delayed and delayed and delayed. Since 2020 we've finally been getting this movie, and I'll be honest, this movie seemed extremely overhyped to me. I personally just watched the first Top Gun just a couple weeks ago, and honestly I think it's very overrated. I don't think it's that great of a movie. I don't think it's bad by any means. I think it's a perfectly fine movie that is decently well made with a couple likable characters, but for the most part it falls pretty thin, and the story itself seems a little bit scattered and unfocused. And this movie does something that I did not think it would do, but it does everything that the first movie did just 100 times better, except for one element which I'll get into later in this review, because this is a spoiler review for Top Gun Maverick. So if you have not seen this movie, definitely I would recommend you guys go check it out, especially in the theater. The theater experience for this one is truly remarkable, and it does remind me of why I love going to the theater for movies like this one. So without further ado, let's just jump right into this movie. So of course this movie follows Maverick, who is of course still the troublemaker that he's been. He's still a captain because he is terrible at following orders. He's always subordinate, and he's always just doing his own thing. It starts off with an incredible opening scene with him in this new age jet going Mach 10 that is just so thrilling. And right from the beginning of this movie you realize that, for one, this movie is going to be incredibly well shot. Claudio Miranda is the cinematographer on this film, with the director Joseph Kosinski from Oblivion and Tron Legacy. Two films which I love. Tron Legacy. Oblivion is not good. I just watched that today. Not a good movie, but I do think Tron Legacy is extremely underrated. And I do like Joseph Kosinski as a director, especially with this one, because of that dedication to the practicality that this movie has, and especially the eye he has as a director, because all three of these movies are incredibly well shot, but this film in particular, the cinematography is off the charts, and seeing how they filmed the plane sequences are truly incredible. The ingenuity that these filmmakers had to have to create these rigs to fit inside of these jets with 6 different cameras pointing at different directions all at the same time, and having the actors start and film themselves essentially and kind of direct themselves on these scenes up in the air is truly a revelation. And these shots on these plane sequences are incredible, and this opening scene really does follow through with that. There's a great shot of the plane flying above somebody's head. I think it's Ed Harris's head, and the top of the building next to him just flies off. It completely breaks the set, and that's what they said in the behind the scenes, that it actually legitimately broke the set, which is just, so many things in this movie are so real because they are. The practicality of this film is definitely my favorite part. And of course you wouldn't have that practicality if it weren't for Tom Cruise and his dedication to doing his own stunts. But it's not just Tom Cruise in this one. I really have to praise the entire cast for all going through like a 3-month training regiment with the Navy, getting themselves to a position where they can fly up in these jets, whether they're flying themselves or they're in the back seats and they're flying up in the air. It is incredible to see so much dedication of this movie. The filmmakers, the actors, everybody involved in this film, the dedication on display is impeccable. But getting more into the story of this film, Maverick has to go back to Top Gun to train all these graduates from the Top Gun school that are all coming back because they have a very specific mission to do. There's a uranium plant in this mountain that they have to go fly through this canyon, essentially fly up and over this mountain, blow up the target that they have. That's essentially like the trench run in Star Wars. It's straight out from the Death Star run at the end of that film, which is just so riveting in this film. And seeing their training sequences to get to that point, and they have to go fly directly up to get over this mountain and then fly into the danger zone of all the missiles. No pun intended with that one, but it just really was a really intense mission that they have to do. And the training of this, the dedication that they have going up in the planes is one thing, but also their characters are all, for the most part, pretty entertaining. There's a lot of them that fall, in the wayside. A couple of them, like Payback and Fanboy, those two characters, although they had a great scene with, them, or one of them passing out and falling from the sky, that was a great sequence. They all had moments to shine, but their characters were pretty thin. I did really like Phoenix and Bob. I think they had a great dynamic with each other in the planes, and they were a presence that was always entertaining to see, although, again, their character arcs and their presence was nothing more than just that. And of course, you have Miles Teller playing Rooster, who is Goose's son in this movie. And again, dedication from actors. I'm kind of surprised that Miles Teller had this much dedication to get up in those planes and do these things, but I really respect him as an actor, mainly because of this now. I really liked him in Whiplash and a bunch of other things, but he is great in this movie. That dynamic between him and Tom Cruise really is the biggest emotional punch in this movie. Of course, you have Tom Cruise feeling guilty about, Goose's death, even though it wasn't his fault. He's still holding on to that 30-some years later. And of course, now with his son being there, his mother asked, Tom Cruise to try to keep him from flying, so he took his papers out of the Navy Academy, and he caused him to essentially be delayed 4 years in his naval career. And so this is a whole, storyline throughout the film that is a very central conflict between these two characters that is set up pretty early on, and it carries throughout. And what I will say about the character arcs and the character moments and the essentially all the characterization in this movie, it is just enough to be good. It doesn't do anything outstanding, it doesn't do anything more than just acceptable, but the performances themselves is what makes these, these storylines, this conflict worth, having in this movie, and having it be worthy of the incredible stunts and the incredible filmmaking on display in this movie. It doesn't have to do so many groundbreaking things with characters when you have all this other stuff on the outside, but it has to do the bare minimum, and it goes a little bit past bare minimum with Rooster and with Maverick. I also do have to give a shout out to Hondo in this movie, and of course John Hamm. I love John Hamm, but Hondo was a great presence in this movie. I loved his character. He was always fun to watch. But let's just get into the meat of this movie, the stuff that you want to hear about, which is the incredible mission that they go on at the end of this film. The third act is incredible, and the build up to that was very strong. Of course, you start off with the dogfighting that you get from the first movie, and you see them training in that fun way. It's a fun sequence to get to know the characters, but then of course it moves on to the canyon stuff, which is very intense. They have to get through this canyon in 2 minutes and 30 seconds, and they do the actual bombing run, which again, that's on top of the canyon stuff, is even more intense. And then of course you have Tom Cruise doing it in 2 minutes and 15 seconds, which is one of my favorite sequences in the entire movie. Him showing off, him being the type of character that he is, again making him even more likable and even more daring than ever. But then you get to the third act where they're actually pulling off this mission. I'm telling you, I have not been on the edge of my seat in a movie since Mission Impossible Fallout because of that practicality. There's something different between seeing Tom Cruise flying in a little spaceship, having a dogfight in, say, Oblivion, for instance, which is the same director, and that is all, CGI, it's all make-believe, it's all, just movie magic. And in this movie, it truly is real filmmaking magic because all these sequences are so practical. You feel that intensity, you feel that weight, you feel the stakes of this movie, and you feel for these characters going through this because you don't know if they're going to make it out. And as soon as they go through this bombing run straight from Star Wars and they get out of there, and all of a sudden all these missiles are flying at them, it is insane. It is such great filmmaking. It is so intense. And again, that buildup is something that I have to praise because again, the characters can be as serviceable as they need to be, but that build up throughout this entire movie from beginning to this third act is so good. I can't help but to just gush about this third act. And as soon as Maverick's ship is shot down and he goes down and Rooster is really feeling that pressure, he wants to go back, and then the movie takes a whole other step further than the original movie does, because essentially the structure of this movie is very similar to the first one, but then it takes that step further and you see him out on the snow, you see the helicopter coming for him, and then of course Rooster comes, saves a day, and then he gets shot down, and then they have to go steal another plane to get out of there. That entire last sequence of this movie was just so much more than I was expecting out of this film, and I think that is how I would kind of wrap up my entire thoughts on this film. It was just so much more than I expected from it. From seeing the trailers, honestly, I thought the story was going to be more in line with what we got with the first film, which is probably why I don't really like the first film too much. It doesn't do anything truly special with this material, with this world, with this story, with this flying these planes and seeing the intensity that can be given for these pilots. This movie really does just take it to another level. And I did mention earlier that there's one thing that this movie does not do as well as the first movie. And of course, that was Jennifer Connelly's character as Penny, which she wasn't bad in this movie. I actually kind of liked the chemistry that Tom Cruise and Jennifer Connelly had in this movie. I thought it was cute. I thought there's some cute sequences of him jumping out the window and seeing her daughter. That was a fun sequence. And the emotion really does build when, when Maverick finds out that he is going on this mission. He has to say goodbye to her because he doesn't know if he's going to make it home. And all that was done without any dialogue. It's a very great moment. And again, serviceable enough for this movie. However, the Carrie McGillis storyline in the first movie was honestly probably one of my favorite parts of that film, because that relationship was built up more. It focused a lot more on it, and it was kind of the central heart of that movie, even more so than Goose was in that first movie. And that just whole thing in this movie, just it felt just like a step back from that first movie, but that was not the point of this film. So I'm willing to look past that, because this film in general is such a great, cinematic experience. There's people cheering in my crowd when the stupid, football beach scene happened. There are people cheering at all these different moments. There's so many moments that are just almost shot for shot remake of the first one, which I think some fans are gonna love. Me, I thought it was a little bit cheesy, especially when it was just like fading away, like the sex scene in the first movie. It was pretty much the exact same thing in this movie. That was a bit of an eye-rolling moment, but you know what? This movie was a lot of fun. I love seeing movies like this in the theater because of that intensity, because of that sound design, because of the cinematography, and because of Tom Cruise's and the entire cast dedication to this craft. This was a great filmmaking experience, and just film experience as an audience member, and I cannot wait to watch it again. I've already seen it 2 times, and honestly, I would have fun watching it in IMAX, because I saw it in Dolby, saw it in regular format. I'd like to see it in IMAX too, because this movie is just so much fun. So that'll be my review of Top Gun Maverick. Have you guys seen it? What did you guys think about it? Did it live up to the hype of, that 30-year buildup for you? Or do you not like the first one like I do and just absolutely love this film? Tell me all about your thoughts on this movie down in the comments. Subscribe to the channel if you want to see more reviews just like this one. I just did a review for Men, which I just uploaded last week, which has been doing really well. So thanks guys for doing, a lot of support for that video. So thanks guys for watching this video. Like I said, leave a comment, subscribe, leave a like, and I hope to see you all in my next one.